we have to create the right vibe, you know, the energy, and everybody at the organization has to feel so privileged to be here. It's no other way.
Thanks for listening to the Purely Arsenal podcast. Please follow us on Twitter at Purely Arsenal FP for all the latest Arsenal podcasts.
Welcome to another episode of a Purely Arsenal sit-down podcast, and I'm joined to talk about that tosh on Tyneside with Neil Shah. How you doing, Neil?
Hi, Jack. Yeah, I'm well. Not great, but we've had an extra day to think about it, so let's see what we can make of it, I guess.
Yeah, we didn't even talk after last week's 2-2 draw against Liverpool because of the time changes over in England, and it kind of affected my side. Completely my fault. But this one, I mean, I don't want to talk about it in a way, but because it was even worse, wasn't it? But we've got to start somewhere. So we lost 1-0 at Newcastle, place that has not been a particularly happy hunting ground for Mikel Arteta in recent years. We've lost 2 of the last 3 there in the league. And I think, you know, we've got to talk about the game and where we're at. We've had a pretty tough start of it and post-international break. But, little pause there, was there?
Yeah.
Sorry. Well, it doesn't usually happen this early. It usually happens after about an hour, so we'll keep an eye on that. But okay. Let me know if it happens again. Yeah, but Neil, I guess I know you don't like line-up questions, but just before we get onto the game, I mean, hindsight makes us all look smart when you don't do well in a game. You go, well, we should have done this, we should have done that, we should have done the other. But I have to say, I felt a little bit, even before the game, and I didn't get a chance because I just woke up and watched the game because it was such an early game for me, but to really think about the lineup. But against Liverpool, I felt Partey was a necessity at right back because we lost Saliba. And obviously lots of fullbacks were out injured, and we didn't really have a lot of options, so I understood it. And Partey was, by the way, terrific against Liverpool. I mean, he was arguably our best player, and I don't particularly think he was, you know, he might be one of the 2 or 3 to come out with a tiny bit of credit from this one. I'm not sure anyone really did, but he may have been. Like, I don't think he certainly wasn't our worst player out there. So I'm not making excuse as that being the issue. My issue is more taking him out of midfield, and that is my issue when it's not necessary. I mean, he's been by far our best midfielder this season. Terrific. And I think Mikel Arteta knows that. When you hear him speak of him, he's very aware of it. So I felt in this game, it wasn't necessary. We had Ben White on the bench. And if he's on the bench, like James always says, if you're on the bench, you're fit enough to start. Otherwise, don't be on the bench. And Ben White hasn't played a ton of football this season, let's be honest, in comparison to what he usually does. We also had multiple left-back options on the bench, right? So you could have put Timber at right-back if you wanted to. And I know they're not all ideal in Kivior and Zinni and Lewis Skelly. And to think now that they'd be going up against Gordon, for example, I understand what we'd all be thinking. But at the same time, you've purchased a lot of these players, right? You've done this thing where you've purchased so many defenders. So I found that part really frustrating. 2 part was the fact that he put in, you know, his dual winners again in midfield. And this was the game that we'd lost. We lost the most duels. I had a stat here. We lost less than 45% of our duels, and that's the 4th time this season we've done that, and we did it 5 times in the entirety of last season. So he's bought players just to, you know, dual winners. But if you don't have that ability to pass and see a pass and things like that, winning your duels isn't really doing much for you. Do you know what I mean? So I was quite frustrated with the way we set up, and then when obviously seeing it in the 90 minutes, it was pretty dreadful, Neil. And I think we had 1 shot on target. It's not a game we've not seen under Mikel Arteta. We've seen this before, where we've just lacked creativity. We saw it last year at St James's. I mean, it was a similar defeat, wasn't it? I mean, I know there was controversy surrounding that one, but in terms of our creativity, it was a very similar game, wasn't it? And just really frustrated. How did you feel after the game? Obviously similar, I'm sure.
I don't know what I felt after the game. I think coming off the Bournemouth loss, the drop points against Liverpool, where, you know, I think we could have won that game. You know, because I thought we were the better team for a large chunk of it, and then to come and just kind of not step away from that mindset of defeat from Bournemouth, drop points against Liverpool, I believe. It's quite frustrating. Just felt very frustrated, Jack, that, I felt that Arteta actually got it wrong, to be quite honest. Now, I'm no expert, certainly nowhere near the levels that, you, Michael and James are. I never really dabble with, personnel and lineups too much, don't really think about it too much. But I just feel that although Partey has done very well this season when he has been asked to play in that right-back position, I still think you're taking out a very good player, as you said, quite rightly so, that being the best of the midfield. And where is our engine is always the midfield. Any football team, the engine is your midfield. And you've got to be able to win duels and win battles in that midfield to take control of any game. And I just noticed, our ex-player in Willock doing really well. They were doing very well on the left-hand side to mitigate Saka and Saka's threats. And we had nothing like that for them as a counter. And you've taken your best player there. I don't think Havertz was playing in his favoured position either, which obviously took a lot away from our attack. So even if you've got the creativity, apart from Saka, what other outlet do you have? And as I said just a minute ago, they were doubling up on Saka again. So they're making it hard for him. But although having said that, Saka was still trying to do his best to channel some kind of attack on that right-hand side. And I think he was probably one of our better players in amongst that lot. And actually someone I've been criticising of late, Raya, probably stood up as well and kept the score respectable, because I think it could have been a lot worse than 1-0. But apart from him, Partey and and Saka, I think all the other players weren't doing too good. Rice, I still don't think has been anywhere near the levels of last season. So if he's not playing as well as he has been, you're taking another big guy or a good player that has shown that this season in Partey away from the midfield. What are you left in midfield? You haven't got Odegaard, the creative player. And I just feel that you had an options with your players that you have got fit. Yes, let's not take away the fact that we've been hounded with injuries in the first 10 games. We've been hounded by those decisions, but yes, letter of the law states that maybe they were the right ones, but ridiculously, the inconsistency proves that it feels like we've been reffed the wrong way. So let's just take that on board just for a minute and not making excuses, but we have had injuries. So we haven't had any consistency in our personnel, Jack, for the team to get used to each other, to build those relationships this season, I feel. So there is that side of it, or that side of the discussion or argument to be had. But having said that, on paper, we should have beaten Bournemouth, I feel, with the players that we had out there. Liverpool, we could have or should have sustained, kept that lead and done better and tried to get the win. And this game, I think it's one of our worst of the lot. I think it was terrible, probably on par with Bournemouth, actually. Yeah. Just bereft of ideas, bereft of anything, intensity and speed as well. Because there was a couple of times that Saka did actually get the ball into the penalty area. I saw that actually 2 or 3 times. But there was no, as you said, it was very toothless in the final third. None of our forwards wanted to be there to actually attack that ball that Saka had produced. So even when you've got a chance from a lack of creativity and you're not taking it, what are you left with? Absolutely nothing. I was left absolutely bereft and frustrated, and I was just on the verge of giving up on everything, and that's so unlike me. But we've got to just pick ourselves up and move on, Jack. What can you do?
Yeah, look, I mean, it leaves us 7 points off the top, and I've got to say I don't love the chat of people, because every defeat feels like 3, doesn't it? Really, I mean, because you know what you're going up against in City and in Liverpool to a certain degree. They've been up there over the years and proven that they can, hit ridiculous points totals and all this sort of stuff. But my concern, like you just said, is not necessarily losing the games, it's how you play, because that has a knock-on effect for a continuation like this. And I know City lost at the weekend, but they don't lose games in this manner very often. They don't. You don't see City, I don't know what their stats were, I believe they had about 18 shots, 4 on target, something like that, or 12. Well, we had 1 shot on target, and I can't remember what it was, to be honest. So I don't remember. The biggest chance was the Rice one at the end for us, which he should have scored from. But I mean, it was really slim pickings, and I have to say, I mean, I think Arteta was generally quite honest at the end of the game in terms of our lack of creativity. But what frustrates me is if you're going to play, like Rice and Marino in central midfield, they are largely players that you look to win the ball, but not necessarily sort of distribute it and be creative with it and things like that. And I think the one we already mentioned Partey, and now what we're doing is we're trying to make Havertz, who looks absolutely exhausted, basically play two roles. We're basically saying to him, well, be the number 9 when you can, but when you can't be, can you be Odegaard as well for us? And he's nothing like Odegaard. He's not someone that's particularly creative from from the edge of the box and looks for that killer pass and things like that. If you're gonna play someone in that area, the closest we've obviously got to that is someone like Ranieri, which we've been calling for a long time. And I have to say, watching this game, I knew he wasn't going to start Ranieri because he didn't start him against Southampton or Leicester at home. But that was an issue, Neil, because we beat Southampton and Leicester at home, and although it wasn't as comfortable as it should have been because we dominated them like massively, I think we would have beaten them with Ranieri in the team as well. And that was your time to see, let me see what I've got from this player and let me give him a chance now, because later on it might provide me another option. But he didn't do that. And now what he's doing is he's basically bringing him on as like a last resort sort of thing, which is the hardest thing for a young player coming in. It's much easier to do it from the start when everything's settled and you're in that team and you're like, I've been chosen from the start. And let me see what I can do here from the get-go. Amongst the first, it's really hard when you're coming on and the team is a complete mismatch. It's playing terribly and you're trying to do something with 10 men against Bournemouth or against Newcastle, where for 80 minutes the teams look toothless, and suddenly you've got to be, as a 17-year-old, you've got to change the game. It's a completely different environment, and isn't it? And I don't think he's hanging him out to dry or anything. And I certainly think Arteta knows better than I do as to when to include him. But I do think we missed the trick there, because we didn't use him in games. If you're not going to use him against two teams that are probably going to be close to the bottom of the league at home, then that you should be winning, then I don't know when you're going to be using him. I'm sure he didn't have the belief that Odegaard would be injured this early in the season. But if you're going to get rid of Smith Rowe and Vieira, then you've said that I trust this player more than them, and that was your opportunity to show it. And now we see a game like this where I think sometimes it works for a few games, like the Havertz Trossard thing worked for a few games in mitigating the Odegaard absence, but after a few games, people suss it out, and it's not there's no longevity to it, and you have to find a different way. And we don't have enough creative, technical players on the ball in this first 11 at the moment. We just don't. I mean, it's basically give the ball to Saka and hope he does something, and there's not enough there. And that's why, like you, I'm so against taking Partey out of the midfield, because he is our deepest but our most creative player in that part of the midfield. So why take him out of it? It just doesn't make any sense. I also thought, Neil, if we go to the goal that was at 10 minutes in or something, and I didn't think we started particularly badly, to be honest, at that point. I thought we were doing fine. But I thought Timber was... He didn't look right. He looked like he lacked complete intensity in this game. I think it was the worst game I've seen him play. And I thought every time, when I watched that goal, but even there was a cross from Gordon a minute or two before it, like a warning sign. And every time I was watching Timber throughout the game, I just felt he looked sluggish. Like he looked like he was like off the pace completely. And I found it quite interesting that Gordon, who's played 90% of his games on the left wing, moved away from Partey and played on the right wing against Timber. And you thought that would suit us, but it didn't suit us at all. He caused Timber, a lot of headaches, didn't he? But ultimately, it's a great cross. It's a brilliant header. Our centre-back shouldn't be that far apart from my liking, but I think you just have to hold your hands up and say that's a fantastic goal, don't you?
Very much like the Bournemouth corner.
Yeah.
You can't do anything about it. I hate people who go on Twitter and are fans and then just say, we should have done better. And what can you do against... I think that was a world-class cross. You're not going to see many of that quality for the rest of the season. I really don't. I just think it was a great cross and it was a great header. It was a very Havertz-like header, wasn't it? He tapped it. It was perfect. Nothing Red could do about that. There's no blame on the goalkeeper. And I will be cautious to actually have any blame on the defenders as well, because what can you do? Yeah, the only thing is there was a bit of a gap between, for Isaac to work with. But apart from that, I mean, I don't think, 9 times out of 10, you're not going to expect a cross that good. I mean, it was just so bloody, it was brilliant. It really was. So you've got to hold your hands up and say, fair play. And although at that point, I don't know if you remember me saying, I said up till the goal, I thought we weren't doing bad. I wasn't overly worried because it was 11 minutes or whatever it was. It was so early in the game. I thought as long as we don't get a player sent off, we've got every chance to come back into this. So at that point in time, I wasn't like, oh my God, alarm bells. Obviously, I was upset because I'm always one for records. I was thinking, our away record was so good up before the City game. And that has just been taken apart, isn't it? It's just like, oh, what's happening to us? So I was more concerned with our record that we'd given another away goal in, and that was only my main concern. But then after that, we just fell apart, Jack. That was such a horrible thing to watch. And I don't know about Timber. I mean, I think he's an extraordinary player. So let's not take that away from him. He is. He's probably, and also if you take it amongst the whole group or the collective, he actually, throughout the season and the number of minutes he's played, he's probably at the top level rather than anywhere.
Oh, he's brilliant. Yeah, he's been brilliant.
Right. So I don't know if this issue with his ACL is still a bit of a hangover. I don't know whether he was worried that something might tweak it again. I don't know, because you're completely right. He just wasn't himself. And that is tough to take when a lot of the players are nowhere near the levels we expect them to be. Do you know what, Jack? I think there's something that you said to me in the chat which really made me feel better. And I'll leave it for you to say, because it's your words. But after I heard, I think it was a voice message that you left, and I felt so much better. And you're right. I think the only way forward is just not to put that pressure on as fans, not to put that pressure on ourselves anymore, and start enjoying each game. And that again is another thing. And I know it's only Preston, but it's still our club playing in a competition. We were a lot better. And look, don't shout at me, people. I know it's Preston. It's a completely different kettle of fish. But when I saw that, I'm talking about momentum and confidence building within the squad, not necessarily the first 11. I saw that. It was almost like, okay, we've had a bit of a blip, but against Preston, we looked really good. Our players who played in that looked really good, and it was a comprehensive win. And I was quite hopeful that, things might turn around again. But we've just seemed to have regressed. And I want to just point out one player in that, and that's Martinelli. I'm so concerned as to what is going on with him. We all felt in the last league and a half or whatever it was, game and a half we played in the league, that he's starting to get his mojo back, that the old Martinelli is coming back to, what he used to be. And then again, he's just gone downhill again, especially in this game. It's absolutely shocking. The same old predictability, the same old thing that he does. He runs down, and then he just gets caught out by the last man, and he's passing. There's only a couple of things that I thought that you could say, okay, fair play to him. There was one moment right at the start where Saka had a chance. I think it was Martinelli that laid it to Havertz. He looped it over for Saka to have a go, but he just didn't. I don't think he got his header right, and that was quite close to the beginning, I think, Jack. So there was that moment. There was a couple of us, but there was so far and few between. It's difficult to remember. But on the whole, he's just not the player he used to be. Now, again, we've tried to analyse it and think that maybe he hasn't had the consistency behind him. He played a lot better when Xhaka was in the team. Are you still there, Jack? Sorry, I thought you paused.
Oh yeah, I'm here.
Yeah. When Xhaka, he was partnering with Xhaka, when Xhaka was in the team, I think he was probably at his best that he's ever played for us. I might be wrong, but you still got to be. It doesn't. Yes, personnel behind you, personnel around you, obviously is a big factor. But when you're 1-on-1 with the defenders, he's not there anymore. He used to be so much better at getting past the players, beating his man, and he's just too predictable for me. He's almost become. I said it before. I think in the pod. I've likened him to Pepe. I know that might be quite insulting. I remember Pepe. We thought he was going to be a great player, and he started off really well. But then the way he used to play on that right hand side became so predictable. It was easy to see, even as a fan, what was going to be the outcome. And I see that with Martinelli now. So that's one player that's regressed. And that almost paints the picture of what's happened to us. I feel we've gone back 2 seasons, Jack, at the moment. And I don't know what the reason is.
You can tell he gets frustrated with Martinelli. I mean, his little comments after games are always bringing up Martinelli's name. He rarely addresses individuals, but he's done it 2 or 3 times this season. He even mentioned a chance from Martinelli, and it certainly wasn't as, whatever chance he was talking about, certainly wasn't as clear as, Rice's one at the end or anything like that. And we had a couple of others. Marino had one blocked from a corner in the first half that he should have scored from, to be honest. It was like 5 yards out. Should have hit it into the roof of the net. But, we didn't create enough. And I think the message, I'm trying to remember the gist of the message that I sent you, but I think basically the last 2 years have been sort of fantastic in terms of how far we've come and how far we've pushed it. But if I was to say, have I enjoyed sort of the process of it? I don't think I particularly have, probably because it hasn't culminated in anything. But to be honest, when it's sort of that endless, we have to win every single game thing, it becomes like, almost like just you kind of dread the worst happening, don't you? And at the moment, obviously, you much more love it when you turn out a victory like this. But I think, having a little bit of perspective and just trying to enjoy games again, and to enjoy games, we've got to play good football again. And we've played so much good football over the last 2 years, and I think that's what we've lost. And if we can get back to playing good football, you do enjoy the games more because you're confident that it's going to turn out in the result that you expect. When you watch games like this one and the one against Bournemouth, it's a really hard watch because you're just not convinced by anything that we're doing. And I think he has a little bit of an issue in away games, although we've had a fantastic run. In the big away games, what I notice, even this season, is obviously we've won some big away games, Spurs and Villa away. But what I noticed is his first priority is to not concede in those big away games. So he almost goes out to be like faultless defensively. And if something hiccups that, like a fantastic goal like this, or a red card at Bournemouth, or whatever it is, I don't think we have a very good plan B after that. Because I think he looks at it and goes, do not let these sort of attacking sides get anything whatsoever. And if we get through that, he goes, don't you worry, we'll get our chance and we'll score. And more often than we didn't in this game, but more often than not, we will. And he's like, if we can beat it, but if you're not it's so hard to be faultless defensively, Neil. I mean, I still believe we have the best defence in the league, even though we're not showing it so far this season. I mean, we've conceded 11 goals already, but I still believe that. But look at, even though we believe it, look what can happen in some of these games. I mean, a fantastic cross and a header, and suddenly, what's your plan now? How are you going to chase the game? And I don't think he has a very good method of chasing games. I mean, I know we came back against City when we were 1-0 down, but it wasn't like we were gung-ho and peppering their goal. It was a fantastic strike from 30 yards and a set piece. It wasn't dissimilar to the way we scored at Spurs, or sort of how we did it against Villa and things like that. And I just think when you're 1-0 down in these games, you've got to have a method of chasing games, and taking away that, or allowing a bit of that vulnerability defensively and taking the handbrake off a little bit. And I think he's so reluctant to do that, and he doesn't really, gets caught in between two minds. I think it's very frustrating, Neil, sometimes, because you watch it and you kind of worry more about what is his plan here and how are we going to really go for it, because if it's another big side, they're going to throw every kitchen sink at it, and we don't. We're so conservative, and we've got so many ways of doing it and so many attacking players, and you look at it going, why are we so toothless going forwards? It's really frustrating, isn't it?
Yeah, you see, I was thinking about this yesterday. What's the difference between this season and how amazing we were last season? We were offensively so good. The number of goals, we were smashing teams apart, weren't we? And I think we were all talking about it on the pods. Of course, we were doing our shows last season and the season before. And I think we'd all agreed that we'd got our identity back and we're playing in a certain manner. And I don't know, who is it? One of you guys, it was either one of you three, James, yourself, or Michael, that is he scared this season because he went so close 2 seasons running, and he wants to tighten up so much in defence? That's almost become his mindset. The identity is gone. As you just talked about just a minute ago, he's so defensively minded that is all he's focused on. And it shows, because I'm sure you and James are the experts at this, that on the ball or having the ball in our possession, our percentage has dropped dramatically from last season. We're playing more off the ball now and letting teams come on us because he thinks that, defensively we're going to be fine. And then there's nothing else. And I think our XG was ridiculous up until the point when Ethan came on at 61 minutes or wherever it was. It improved after he came on, but not by much. But last season, our XGs were going into the 3s and 4s, weren't they? I think that one of the games was almost 5. Yeah. And it just goes to show that we'd established an identity. We were all so happy because the first couple of seasons Arteta was with us, everyone was moaning, including us. What's our identity? We don't understand. We don't even know what we're watching here. And I just feel it's the same again. Yeah, great. It's great that you're focusing on defensive. I'm all for that. I'm of the George Graham era, where that was so important that we built the foundation. But then once you've built the foundation, you've got to go forward and carry on the build, midfield and the offence. And I feel that he's negated the midfield and the offence this season completely. And you're right. We get hit by a good goal or even a bad decision that goes against us. And that has proven to be the case this season. So, and then he just completely falls apart and he doesn't know what to do. And the answer's there. In so many cases we've talked about, bring on Ethan. He's a great, great player. He is the answer for someone who's injured. What happened when we had missing players when Saka and ESR got their chance because of missing personnel? Saka then has been a stalwart ever since. ESR, all right, he had his injuries and then he fell away. But I feel like the way he was trying to reintroduce ESR is exactly what he's doing with Ethan now. Remember, he was bringing on ESR once he was fit for the last 5 minutes when we were losing and expecting him to, turn out miracles. You can't do that and put the pressure on someone like Ethan to do that. So the one creative person we have got, don't try and destroy his confidence by bringing him out in games where a lot of expectation is on his shoulders. I think that's so wrong as well, Jack. Mentally for the kid, that's not right. And that's our one creative player we've got fit at the moment in midfield. So where's our identity now? You tell me, what is he trying to achieve here? Because I don't know.
Yeah, I think keeping Fabio Vieira and Smith Rowe, I still believe this would have been a mistake because I think Fabio Vieira played 290 minutes last season in the Premier League and Smith Rowe played less. So he doesn't trust them. That's my point. He does not trust them. So keeping them around is pointless. But by not signing an attacking midfielder, you must trust Ethan Nwaneri. And I think he does. But he's 17 and he's trying to protect him and, all of the back to come in. But sometimes it's needs must, right? Sometimes, like you just said, sometimes it's opportunity, right? We didn't expect Hector Bellerin to be our right back when Debussy went down with a shoulder injury, but suddenly we had no choice. And Wenger went, you're ready because it's your time now. And I believe in you, And he believes in Ethan Nwaneri. I don't doubt that in the next year or two, Ethan Nwaneri is going to be a huge star for Arsenal. But sometimes the opportunity it just comes up, right? It just comes up. Look at Lewis Skelly. No one would have thought Lewis Skelly would have got minutes at left back this season, but we had 4 of them out. So he's getting minutes. Do you know what I mean? So sometimes that opportunity is there, and what you have to do at that point is show that you trust him more than the players that you got rid of. Otherwise, Otherwise, we're going to look at it and say, why did you sign another left back when you'd already signed 4 when you could have signed an attacker, And I mean, my personal opinion is we should have signed a front 3 type of player because I think we lack star quality other than Saka in the front 3. And I mean, we've spoken about that for about 2 years and we've still not done it. But But I could have forgiven all of that if, you know, he trusted in the players that he's placed in the squad to place there. But I think he missed a trick with Ethan Nwaneri, because obviously he's not going to start him in this week's games, but he may have done if he'd started him 4 weeks ago in the games that he could have been trusted in, I think. And I mean, look, Neil, I mean, we've had 5 Premier League away games this season and we've had 37 shots. Only Brentford have had less shots on the road in this division. Now, I know we played Tottenham, we played Villa, we played City, we've played a lot of tough away games, this one including Newcastle. But that shows how much he is, in the big games, defence first minded. And I don't think nowadays, I know the Mourinho era and all this sort of stuff, but I don't think nowadays, I don't think you can win a title like that. I just don't think you can do it. I think you have to go out in order to dominate the other team. You have to do it, and by doing that, defence, that's your way of defending, and you allow those defenders that you trust to have more responsibility. So if you're going to get caught on the break 2-on-2 or 3-on-3, you trust them at that moment. That's exactly what we need to do, not, you know, relinquish pressure and sit back deep and fall into a deeper block and all that sort of stuff. That's not what that's inviting danger, because then you're a worldie away from losing the plan going out the window. And that's exactly what Isaac did. It's a worldie goal. Bournemouth's corner, you know, it's gone. You know, so that's and against Villa, you know, we you know, there was almost that the deflection off the bar, and boom, it could have been a completely different game. I think you're playing such fine margins by doing the way we're doing it in away games, and we don't do that at home. Even though we drop points sometimes at home, we don't play like that. We go out to dominate the other team. Look what we did against Liverpool in the first half. We had barely a squad out there, and we went out and we tried to dominate them, and they barely conceded all season. And to be honest, we made them look stupid for 45 minutes. We should have been 2 or 3 up, I think, in that first 45. And then obviously we lost Gabriel, we lost him, but we you know, I think it really came down to the fact of personnel at that point. But away, he's far too tentative. He's far too off it. I found it really interesting that, you know, like you said with Martinelli, I mean, Livermento's put him in his pocket twice now, and Livermento is a pretty good fullback, but he's a complete pace merchant, just like Martinelli is. And as soon as I saw Martinelli go up against him, I was like, you're going to try and run him. And Livermento loves that. He loves you running him. What he doesn't want you to do is be tricky and put the brakes on and play a 1-2 and things like that. But every time he got the ball, Martinelli just bombs beyond, and I'm like, he loves it. Livermento will do that all day. He's one of the fastest fullbacks in the league. He loves it. So it's so frustrating. But another thing he's got to do, Neil, is Havertz was an elite number 9 for the last 6 months, and he's not playing there. He's not playing there anymore. I mean, he's barely there. I mean, you've got to get him back there, Neil. That's the 2 things he's got to do. He's got to get Partey back in midfield, and he's got to get Havertz back at the 9. We know you bought him as a midfielder. He's not one, though, Mikel. Stop doing it. Stop trying to get Havertz back in midfield. Do something. Just stick with what's been working. So frustrating. But I mean, I don't really know. After the goal, they had, you know, Willock had a few chances, didn't he? And but yeah, I mean, we didn't make subs till he should have made subs at half time. I mean, why is he not making subs at half time there, Neil? What told him that we need to keep going as we were? What was it? I mean, why can't he do? Are we immune to making subs at half time? It's unbelievable. It's so frustrating, isn't it? Isn't it frustrating though? But I was we came out 2 or 3 minutes early, didn't we? And I thought, we must have made a sub. And I looked around and I was like, everyone's still out there. How's Marino out there?
Do you know what? The funny thing is, what you just said is exactly what the commentator said here. Oh, we can't believe he hasn't made a sub.
What?
I don't know what's wrong with him. He's been so off it this season with his management, his game management, his player management. It's absolutely shocking. And, you know, you're absolutely right in the sense that it is fine margins. You're playing with fire, trying to win games by being absolutely brilliant at the back. It's not going to work every time. There are some extraordinary players in this league, in other teams, and they can hurt you, Jack. It doesn't matter how good you are at the back. And what annoys me and what is frustrating about all of this is he had a perfect benchmark to work with this season, which is his own team from last season. We didn't do much wrong last season, Jack, did we? Yeah, we lost those couple of games where maybe we ought to have done better, which probably cost us the title. But we done so well. I thought we did even better than we, in some ways, than the season before. We ran it so close, but that was the continuation. That is what you had to work with, to build on that. But he's just gone in a different direction. And the substitutions, number one, the timing of them, where, how many times this season we've had Jesus and Ethan come on way too late to make a difference. So the timing is a factor. And then it's almost the substitutions he makes where he could have brought an attacking player on, he brings a defensive player on. And it's like, what are you doing? Trossard for me should have been way off earlier than he was. But he sticks with him. Trossard's another one. Ever since that, I felt it was almost like a protest when he scored at Villa. It's like Arteta's scared to not play him. And I don't understand why someone as cutthroat as Arteta is continuing with Trossard. Trossard, don't get me wrong, is a very effective and a good, clever player, but he's better. I've said it time and time again, when he comes on as a sub, either to enhance what we've already been doing or to even save our skins. And he does make a difference. We've seen it, Jack. How many games can we look back on and say, wow, Trossard was amazing when he came on. He's changed the game for us.
Huge value in having an impact player from the bench as well. There's not many of those, you know?
No. And he's one of them. So you've got the bench for Mikel. Look at last season. Look how you were playing. Can we get that back, please? In that away shirt, which caused so much controversy with fans, and what is that? But actually, we were unbelievable in that shirt. We were destroying teams, Joe. That's what we want to see. You said earlier, all right, we're not going to win every game, but we want to see a good performance. And you take probably 95% of the games last season, we played superb football, Jack. We were so good. It was so good to watch. It was putting a smile on all our fans' faces. We're thinking, wow, even we probably weren't expecting us to be 5-0 up, before half time in some of these games. It was such a joy to watch. Everyone wanted to. We were saying we're looking forward to the next game so much. I've gone back to now. Oh God! Now we've got a terrible game in midweek against a good team. Then we got Chelsea away, which I wouldn't even bat an eyelid of last 2-3 seasons. But now all of a sudden they're playing well, and I'm thinking, oh Christ!
We can't forget, as good as we were. Towards the new year of last year, we were in a similar state, weren't we? Where we were on a terrible run, weren't we? We lost to West Ham. We lost to Fulham away. We got knocked out by Liverpool in the Cup. There was one or two others in there that I'm forgetting. And we couldn't score. We couldn't create for a few of those games either. We looked like we just were never going to score again. I remember just watching it being like, we're never going to create chances again. It's just ridiculous. And then we had the Dubai thing and went on a run. So we have had it. The problem with him, though, is he form always comes in clusters. So when we get poor form with him and we have a really bad game like we did against Bournemouth or this game, you always know it's coming round the corner again. We don't, like City will lose, like they lost to Bournemouth, and whoever they play mid with, they'll just smash them 4-0 or something. They'll just absolutely ruin them. And we always seem to have clusters. And I don't doubt, I love Mikel Arteta, and people saying things like Arteta out and all that sort of stuff. I just ignore it because, I think he's taken us so far, and I was wrong. 3-4 years ago or 3 years ago when I said, I don't think he's going to take us anywhere, and he clearly, proved me wrong. So I'm not going to make that mistake again. But at the same time, he's not adverse to criticism, and I just think we don't snap out of it quick enough. Look, even though we had an amazing run post-January, we won like 19 out of 21. It wasn't enough. And the reason it wasn't enough is because we didn't get out of that rut quick enough. We didn't get out of it quick enough. And like I said, now I really think it's hard to look at things like title challenges and things like that when you're playing like this. And, your form is like this. I just don't know what the point is. People still are going, well, I think we can still forget about it for the time being. Early in the season, if you want to say we're out of it, you're out I wouldn't argue with that, but at the same time, I'd focus more on how can we get back to being as effective as a attacking football team as we were in the last 6 months of last season. If we can do that, the rest can take care of itself. But if we can't get back to that, we've got a real problem. I think Neil, I truly believe he'll get us back to that. I truly do. I think he will. But it's how long it takes. And what's not great is what you want after this is you want a home game against Burnley or something, you know what I mean? But we don't have that. We just have hard games after hard games, and then a break, and then more hard games, and it's relentless. And I think he needs to go back. To be honest, Neil, I think he needs to go back to familiarity. So like we just said, get Partey back in midfield, get Havertz back up top. Maybe, I don't want to say it, but maybe even get. I think Zinchenko at left back might be going too far, but having people that are comfortable on the ball and creative, obviously getting Odegaard back in the team as soon as possible, but all of that sort of stuff, I think we have to get back to that. Because, what do you think about Rice Marino, Neil? I think that's a good sort of thing. It's very early days with it, isn't it? I felt it kind of worked against Liverpool in a sense. So there's definitely some green shoots there. In this game, it didn't work whatsoever. They overrun us, they outdueled us, they dominated the midfield, and the reason we couldn't really get the ball out to our front men was because Rice and Moreno, they lost it completely. Yeah, I know Rice had a bit of a better. The last 30 minutes he got a little bit better when we started to sort of move Partey and Jorginho into midfield and things like that, but. They were overdone, weren't they? They were outrun by Bruno Guimaraes and Jonathan. Outfought, I thought.
Yeah, we lost the battle in midfield. That was clearly abundantly obvious. I think Rice. I think Mourinho's going to be a good player, but I don't think he's found his feet yet. I don't think so. He's shown flashes of it. Thinking, yeah, great. But I don't think he has completely found his feet. And until that's established, and he's got the partnership with the other midfielders, it is a bit of a waiting game. The problem is, this league being so competitive, we don't have time or the luxury to wait. And what you said there, again, is spot on in the sense that we have to recover quickly. And how does that work? How do we do that? Do we start playing Mourinho as a bit of a bit part player? Get when Odegaard returns, do we go back to a little bit of a system we had last season with Odegaard, Partey and Rice? I'd say yes, because that worked. And maybe Mourinho then is used as a rotational player because obviously we're still going to be playing 2 or 3 games every week until at least January. So I would go with that because I don't think they've really found it. The communication and how it should work between them isn't working at the moment, and the midfield in Newcastle completely outdone them. Completely outdone. We were destroyed in the midfield, Jack. There's no getting past it, and that's what led to them, having a lot of chances going forward. They outdone us in terms of forward attacking play. And I've got to say, I was impressed with Willock. I thought our ex-player was tremendous. He obviously had a point to prove, but he was playing ever so well. And I was thinking, we haven't got anyone like him today in our team. Look at him; he's playing really well. He's our ex-player. So yeah, I think Mourinho just needs time. I think there is a quality player in there, but I'll be honest, he won't be my first choice. When Odegaard comes back, and as you said, please go back to. It's always that cliche. Don't mend something that doesn't need fixing. Bring Partey back into midfield. Play Havertz as the 9, and bang, you've got a lot of our players back in the positions they're comfortable with. As you said, we've got our identity back in a certain manner of speaking. But it is also a worry. There is that positivity in the sense that, look, when Odegaard returns, maybe things we'll get some balance back. We'll get a bit of familiarity back. The players will be more comfortable. But what my worry is with that is, look how... Oh, are you still there or you paused?
Edu's leaving.
What?
Yeah, Edu's set to leave Arsenal. Sporting director has played a pivotal role, just came out. Wow. That's not good. That's not good. I don't like that at all.
Oh my goodness me. This is official?
It's just been released in a paper, yeah, but I can't imagine it's not.
Do you know what? I caught the back end of Michael's pod yesterday, and they were talking about if nothing else, because they were talking about if Arteta doesn't win anything this season, is it time for him to go and all this kind of stuff? Because he's had a long time there. And they were saying that even if he does go, it's not as bad as when Wenger went, because at least we've got the structure at top. And now you've just told me that Edu's leaving. How weird is that?
Breaking news right here.
Okay, I've lost my flow.
Sorry, I completely interrupted. Interrupted your thought.
No.
I just saw it come up, and I was like, "Oh, hold on, that's not good, Neil." I think they've had a really good working relationship.
So, what does that mean? Do you think that's the part of the reason as to why things have been falling apart on the pitch?
Well,
because this might have been.
I don't think so, but it might have a little bit of a reason to explain maybe the last transfer window. You know. I wonder. I mean, more will come out with it, but I wonder.
I that's quite shocking, Jack. I don't know what
it says.
What the?
Is widely thought of talks have been ongoing. Yeah, very unprofessional.
But this is pretty big news, right?
Yeah, it is pretty big.
I'm quite.
The problem with that, Neil, is, you know, as much as he's come in for credit, I think he's done a fantastic job.
Yeah,
Edu. And you know how much I love Edu, but I've always felt, I know people moaned at him about sales, but I mean, if you terms of recruitment and where he's taken us, he's been a huge part of it. It's very difficult to find that sort of Wenger Dean, you know, like connection from board to manager. And that can really change and affect things. I mean, you look at even Jurgen Klopp, you know, when he lost, can't remember who the guy was that he worked with, but it wasn't the same after that. And a lot of people would say, you know, it was kind of like him working on his own. And when Wenger lost Dean, it was never the same, was it? It wasn't the same. You know, Wenger ended up taking on far, far more responsibility. And, you know, there was a lot of discussion about Edu sort of holding Mikel accountable for things like getting rid of players that were on the fringes that he wasn't using and things like that, and over giving him oversight and not just allowing free reign, because in a sense, Neil, that's what cost Wenger in a way, right? He got almost too much freedom in the end to do whatever he wanted to do, and Wenger was amazing, but there was one, that takes away from what you're doing on the pitch, but two, that you know, there's weaknesses there. Every manager, you know, has weaknesses there, and that's what the sporting director is there to do. So I don't know the reasons. I'm sure the reasons will come out. Maybe. So where have you heard this?
What's the source for you?
Mock Bell. He's like a tier 2 source, but I can't see why he would have released the information that Edu is leaving. He basically said Edu's leaving.
Is it said? Was it end of the season?
That's what it doesn't say. I clicked on the link. It just says but I'm sure more will come out. Just says set to leave.
Oh my God, that's completely thrown me, mate. I'm sorry. The viewers, sorry to the.
No. I mean, where were we? I mean, we've got to talk more about the team, I guess, because that's what Marino.
Yeah, we were just talking about him,
but like you said, I think on Marino, we're not judging him. No, it takes time. But like you said, you've got to get back to familiarity, and I would use Marino as, you know, instead of Rice, not always playing him with Rice. Sometimes bring him on instead of Rice, because Rice is playing in the 8. I just basically think at the moment you can't really remove Thomas Partey from the midfield.
No, you can't.
Until we get back to a way where everyone's confident, everyone's ticking, and suddenly you can rotate it. When you're trying to find your feet again, you've got to get your best midfielder back in there, and Thomas Partey's been our best midfielder all season. I mean, he has, and you know, you can't really say about last season because he didn't play, until the latter end, and that's when we were really good, weren't we? In the latter end, I mean, we won a lot of big games with him in the team towards the final stretch. So yeah, he's a very off the ball player. He only had 30 touches in the game, Marino, which was the least amount of any starter other than Havertz, who had 29. So he's basically the least amount. Thomas Partey had the most touches out of anyone, even from right back. So, you see what I mean? I mean, again, it's just everything filters through him. I think Marino just needs to find his role again. Sometimes I feel like I want him to sit closer to Rice, and he's too far forward. Like, there was just huge gaps between the two of them, almost playing as second forward. I was like, Mikel, we don't have the ball enough to be doing this. Sit as a double pivot, right? Win the ball back first, but we were losing every duel. and I felt like he was too ahead of the ball at times. But yeah, very frustrating. Timber looked, like you said, off it. I think even Saliba looked like he was a little bit off it. He said after the game, didn't he? He said, I'm not at my level at the moment. He was very honest about it. But there's a couple of times I think one time that Willock ran past him and I was like, yes, that's very unlike Saliba.
Got away as well. And he got shot away as well.
We look tired. We look fatigued. I think a big part of Mikel Arteta's game is intensity. And we look tired, I think. And I don't know what to do. I mean, you can't refresh the legs with games like this coming. There's no way of doing that, but you may have to change 2 or 3 in order to do that, while still keeping the team strong. I'm not sure, Neil. What do you do?
We haven't got the luxury. Look at the teams playing the next 2 games. They're both away.
Yeah.
It's difficult.
Exactly. No, it's frustrating, but overall, Newcastle, like, no complaints. Not like last year where there was controversy and etc. And I don't think Mikel Arteta tried to make any excuses. To be fair, they were. I don't want to say they were fantastic. To be honest, if we'd scored a goal, if Rice had taken that one in the last minute, I would have probably said it was a fair result. To be honest, I don't think either team created very much. I think our XG was almost double what there was. So I certainly don't think they, out created us or anything like that. It was a game of very few chances, but it was a game where the onus was on us. See, that's where they probably deserve it, because they were 1-0 up from the 10th minute. The onus wasn't on them to keep creating. It was on us to break them down, and we didn't show enough. And in that sense, you've got to say, fair enough, fair result. And I don't think we can look at it, like other games this season and be like, feel hard done by or things like that. No. Now we've got to look to, Inter Milan, they're a really good team. I mean, they are. I think they're, I don't know, second in Serie A, but they won it last season, didn't they? I think they might have even won it the season before. Very good team and really clever. Simone Inzaghi, he's just really clever with the way they set him up. I think he sets them up in a 3-5-2 often. And it's at the San Siro, and we don't have much time to think about it. So, I mean, for my liking, Neil, what would you do to change it? Would you do what we said? Got to get, at the very least, we've got to get Partey back into the midfield and Havertz back up top, haven't we, for midweek?
Basics, exactly that. That's it. That's all we can do. What else can we do? Then hopefully the players find something from within themselves to produce a bit of magic maybe on the day. But apart from that, there's nothing more you can do. You're right. You ain't going to play Ethan. That is for sure. And there is talk that Odegaard may be returning. But God, if he's fit to play, you've got to play him, I think. But boy, that is some blooding to come back into a game like that. Yeah, they are, as you said, very good. I'm not very. See, James again is the one when you talk about other leagues and other teams, he's very on the ball about all of it. And if he'd been here today, he probably could be giving us a good breakdown as to what we can expect. But I know that they are a very good team, especially in this format that the Champions League is in at the moment. They're going to be very, very hard to beat, Jack. So, the best we can do is get back to players being comfortable in their own skin in terms of their positioning, and then just hope for a good performance. And I'd be pleased with a draw, I'll be honest with you. I always go for a wins because that's the way I am. But actually, given where we're coming from, I think a draw isn't going to be a bad result at a ground like that. We did that 5-1 against them many years ago, which was wonderful to see. Who's there in an attacking form or in any personnel that can actually do that for us? That's not going to happen. So just play where players are comfortable. If White's fit, I wouldn't mind playing him, Jack. Play White, get him back in. So it frees up that position for Partey to come back into the midfield. Play Rice. Rice and Partey had a good thing going last season. We need to re-establish that relationship between the two of them. And then, as I said, use Marino as rotation. And Havertz has got to go forward. He's got to. He's great in that position. Stackable himself, and then I would still play Martinelli, and don't play Trossard from the start. They're the things I would change.
Yeah, agree with all of that, really. I may do something different at left back if Timber looks, because I felt he looked leggy. Yeah, and we're going to need him at the weekend to play. And like you said, post ACL, I don't think it's wise to play a player like that 3 times a week anyway. So I wouldn't be against that, whether it's Kivior or if he goes Zinchenko, I'm not sure. But yeah, agree with you. I wouldn't start Trossard. I probably would start Martinelli, because if we are going to try and play off the break, you need an outlet. And you got to get Partey back in midfield. The frustration with the firepower stuff is we don't have the firepower. I know we've scored amazing amount of goals in the last 2 seasons, but when you look at the numbers that forwards put up in the teams like Liverpool and City, other than Saka, they've got Salah and Jota and even Nunes to a degree, and Diaz, and City, Haaland, and Silva, and these other players that will chip in with a lot. Alvarez, before he left, chip in with a lot of goals. So when you find something in Havertz, who was on pace for a 20, he had like almost a 20 goal assist season, and he hadn't even played after that in centre forward. You just can't remove him from there. You have to keep him there. If we'd signed Gutierrez for 80 million, I'd say fine, but we didn't. So keep him in the centre forward position. You can't move him out of it. That's got to be last resort now for me. Last resort. And my opinion, I mean, he won't start Ranieri. If Odegaard's fit, definitely start him, because he won't start Ranieri, and that's the reason. I do not want to see a Partey, Rice, Marino. I could no longer watch a basketball team win balls back, and like winning balls back is one thing, but you've got to be able to do something with it. And yeah, we've got to have some creativity with it. Just get back to dominating the ball. Can we go there and dominate them with the ball? And yeah, like you said, if you can get a point there, that's a fantastic result. That is a fact. They are. I mean, I don't know. Yeah, they're like us. They've won 2, drawn 1. But they've lost 1 game in Serie A this season. They're second in the table behind Napoli, who are having a fantastic start to the season under Conte. But they're a fantastic team. They're one of the best coach teams in Europe. I know that much. James knows a lot more about them, but I know that much. And they've got some really, really good players. So that is going to be one of the toughest games we play. We've had a lot of tough games in the Champions League, to be fair, just like we have in the league. I think we play Sporting after that away as well. So, or maybe it's home, but it's very tough. So, yeah, going to be extremely tough, Neil. Really, really tough. Let's do predictions, shall we? If we've got nothing more to say. I'm trying to see, just before we go, if there's anything more on the Edu stuff. So I'll say to it if there is.
Oh, my goodness, I can't.
But it does look like the club, obviously, we lost Jack Wilshere. We're losing Edu. Yeah. Hopefully it's at the end of the season. I would really hate it.
That's still devastating, Jack. It really is.
Yeah, really devastating. I don't like it at all, because I think those relationships are so hard to establish, from manager to board.
Consistency.
Yeah. And
yeah. I think something's happened, Jack, because I would be. He came across as someone that would want to win the league with us or win a big trophy with us, and for it to fall away now, and to be released now as well in mid-season, well, not even mid-season. During a season, something's happened, Jack. Something has gone wrong somewhere for me, because he just the way you heard him, the way he talked about stuff, it just doesn't make any sense to me that this is normal. Something has happened. Yeah. And that's right, and that's scary, because if it's something that's happened, that's going to have reverberations throughout the whole club. And this is not good news, mate. I'm sorry. I think this is worse than the loss. Oh God, this is terrible.
Yeah, I don't like it. I don't like it one bit. Obviously, more will come out. Hold on, Arsenal director set to leave the club. Doesn't say. Fabrizio Romano released it as well. Doesn't say when.
Oh, that's it. Then it's happening for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, it does not say where. I don't see anywhere when. I presume it's at the end of the season, because.
Why release it now then? That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, or whether the news has just come out now and succession planning or whatever. If it's at the end of the season, you can. But again, though, the problem there is that's when their work starts.
Exactly.
So you can't. You'd have to plan for his successor before that. I mean, and there's not anyone internally, Neil, You know, unless you're promoting Per Mertesacker there or someone like that. But I don't think so. I mean, he's pretty good with his youth academy work. So for me, I mean, I don't know a lot of sporting directors and availability of them and who would be linked to Mikel Arteta, but I don't know who's prepped for that sort of job. I have no idea who's ready and prepped for that sort of job.
No.
It's worrying. I don't like it at all. Neil, what's your prediction for midweek and then against Inter Milan and Chelsea on Sunday away?
I'll go 1-1 midweek. I think we've just got to try and get back to some semblance of what we were, at the beginning of this season or beginning of this year and up to the summer. Or the end of 23-24 season. We just got to get that back. And I'm going to do an unusual prediction as a draw. So I'll go 1-1. I'll be chuffed to bits with that, just to get us back on track and then hopefully build on that. Obviously, we can't say too much about the Chelsea games. We've got to first see this one out. Hopefully, there's no blooming injuries from it. God, that's the last thing we need. So hopefully come out of it unscathed, come out of it for the players feeling a bit better for themselves, and think, right, we're back on it again. We've recovered from that blip, whatever it was. And hopefully, it is away, but I still think we've got enough for Chelsea. I still believe it. I'll go 2-1 against Chelsea. So 1-0, 1-0 with Inter. Scorer, I'll say Saka in midweek. And I think we could potentially beat Chelsea 2-1. And I'm going to go with Havertz against Chelsea. So that's my predictions.
Say that all day. I'll go. I was going to go 0-0 midweek, but it sounds boring, doesn't it? And I think we've had enough boring with Arsenal in the last week or so. I'll go 2-2. I'll go 2-2 Arsenal winner, and I'll say Martinelli first scorer. And against Chelsea, that I watched them. I mean, it didn't look very good against Man U, but they definitely look a lot better this season. And we're playing Inter Milan away, and they're playing Noah's Ark or something in the Conference League at home. So they'll be playing 12-year-olds in that, or they could just play their second team that's worth about 700 million.
I believe, right?
But all right, well, yeah, it's not going to be easy because, like I said, the response to defeats always worries me. But I'll go 1-0 Arsenal at Chelsea. Okay.
Let's enjoy the football again, Jack. Let's try to anyway.
Yeah, let's try to. If he
despite this horrible news about Edu, God.
I know. If he can get a couple of footballers on the pitch, that would be nice. For a couple of players that want to play with the ball rather than off it, that would be nice. So yeah, hopefully 2 or 3 changes in the lineup as well midweek. Got to hold a few people accountable because it was a collectively really poor performance. So he'll just roll out the same 11 again. So I'm sure he'll make a few changes and then go from there. And then we'll, I guess, react on point to this Edu news and see where we go from there, because that's going to be another worry for us, isn't it? We're losing personnel to injuries, and now we're losing board members. So it's not good, is it? Not good. The problem with that is I have no idea where you go from there because I don't understand that field very well. And
it's a twofold problem, Jack. It's not right. It's also why this has happened. It doesn't make any sense to me because I thought he was really happy with his job, and I don't know. Something's gone wrong.
What did Bergkamp work as Ajax? No, that was Overmars. Overmars with Bergkamp did something else at Ajax. He didn't do director of football stuff.
He would be wonderful though. Someone like him there, but I don't know. We'll have to wait and see.
We have to wait and see. We can't predict that now, can we? It's only just happened.
No.
We are at Purely Arsenal FP on Twitter. We are Purely Arsenal on YouTube. Subscribe to us there. Give us a little like. Appreciate that. And we'll be back after this week's football. Hopefully, Arsenal can bounce back and give us a bit of positivity. So on to Wednesday we go. Neil, it's been a pleasure. Thanks so much for doing it. Appreciate it. Thank you to everyone for listening, and we'll be back soon. Up the Arsenal.